Okay, could we ask the guests to identify themselves, please? Unmute yourselves and identify yourselves.
Ray
And
Arndt,
you're welcome.
community member.
Mike DeRosa, a member of the Transportation Committee.
Steve Hetzler, Steve Hetzler, community member. My wife Karen's joining me.
Yeah, I'm Glenn Fulmer with Transportation Committee.
Debbie Barilla, a resident of Gold Canyon.
Carla, Carla Coward, community member.
That's all the people on board.
Okay, thank you very much. And you're all welcome at any point. If you want to interject anything, unmute yourselves and use the button for, I think it's raise your hand. Is that correct, Dave?
Yeah, it's part of the chat function, I believe.
Very good. Our guest speaker was unable to join us this morning. Dr. Maharaj had a family situation that he had to take care of. And so I would like to further down on the agenda, I'd like for community members to be prepared to respond if you've participated in any of the ASU class proceedings. We'd welcome your comments further down on our agenda, and I'll let you know when we get to that. So we'll move to subcommittee reports from GCCI, Transportation and Safety.
Great, thank you, Roberto. We've had a very successful meeting this last week with ADOT. We've been waiting some time for some interim recommendations on safety at our intersections. And this was a preliminary report, but gave us hope that we would be moving forward a little faster than we have. One of the major items they'll be doing is changing the striping at the intersections. And what that'll do is it'll help facilitate, especially left-hand turns where there's two lanes. You'll be able to they'll direct you, say at the McDonald's, to use both lanes to try and speed things up. And similarly at Superstition Mountain, same thing. There's two lanes there. Some people are turning into the plaza, but some aren't. So if we can get flow through faster, that would be helpful. And also, I don't know the details, but the speed limits and the signaling or the signage is not consistent across the corridor, so they're going to make a change there. So that's probably not going to be noticed by us. One of the big things they're going to do is change the situation at Mountain Brook and Gold Canyon RV Resort. Those lights right now, if you're coming from the RV resort, you get a minute to turn left, then it stops, and then you come from Mountain Brook and you turn left. So what they're going to do is make that, so that takes a minute and a half each time. So what they're going to do is make that one signal. So there's a few people who go straight through, like probably 1 in 10. So they'll have to be careful. So we'll have to make sure there's a notice, but just if you change that to one light instead of two, you'll save a minute in every 3 or 4 minutes. So what that'll do, it'll reduce the frustration. So that I'm sitting at Mountain Brook and I look across and I watch those guys turning left. And I said, well, I could be turning left, right? Because I'm going towards Florence and I have to wait, and so does everybody else on 60. So that one simple change we'll have to make sure it's a safe, safe, but that'll make a big difference in that corridor. Longer term, so that's not dramatic, but longer term, we've got their focus on, they know they need to either put in extra lanes for left turns, like maybe make a double left lane where they can, as well as potentially put a third lane throughout the corridor. So I never heard that before from ADOT. That was something we had talked about, but there's factors around that because it's just safety factors. Because if you have 2 going to 3 and then go back to 2, you have things to be considered. But just to have that on the table was good news. So more to follow. The county was represented there by Andy Smith and Chris Wanamaker, the engineer. So we want to get on the same page with them because we were having separate meetings. And we didn't know exactly what they were covering, but they had a list of what they thought we wanted, and we had our own list, so we combined that. And I guess it was kind of a breakthrough meeting in my mind to at least be on the same page. And of course, we need funding for the longer term things, but at least we're moving forward. So that was really good news. Now I know that is Dale on? I don't see Dale.
No,
Okay. Just talk a minute on the trail side. He's got some traction with new people who are interested in trails, and I know Glenn Fulmer is active as a cyclist, and so that's starting to gain some momentum as Dale gets his arms around, other community members, and he's off to a good start. I know he was going to talk to Ken Taylor about collaboration on trails and expansion, and you, Charlie, and I don't know where that is right now, but that's on his radar right now. I assume you do that in April. Another concern, another flashpoint is there's plans to put a Maverick service station right across from Walgreens. And when we brought that up with ADOT, they have the same concerns we do, that this is going to be, why would we bring in all that traffic and have more left turns off 60 and congestion at Walgreens, which is, it's a single lane, and it's backed up now, so it would make it even more risky if you can picture coming in, and then if you want to turn left and go to a Maverick instead of the Circle K, you're gonna have to put in a median there, and like somebody brought up, they'll have to go all the way up to the church and turn around and create a real log jam there. So we'll more to follow on that. I'm not sure where that is in the approval process, but they do have to do a traffic study. And we're not trying to stop business, but it would be a real could be a mess. I mean, maybe there's ways around it. I don't know what the plan is.
is there any, the Shell station on Mountain Brook, is that kind of a similar situation? Is that what's bringing up the concerns?
It backs up a lot of traffic, because a lot of people go in there and then they want to turn left, they want to come out again. We said, could you move it on the right-hand side? Because it's people who are going to Superior or further down who need the gas, but sometime down the road, I guess that'll happen. But it's similar. And when you come in off this Circle K in the Shell area, there is a median there, but there's nothing on the right? So you don't have that extra capacity, and there's a second lane for those of us who are going into the community for about, say, 300 feet where you can be on the right-hand lane. So there's a little bit of a gateway. It's actually a little better than at Walgreens right now, but same kind of congestion problems.
Yeah.
I don't have any comments on the Sleepy Hollow situation. I'm not that close to that, so maybe somebody else is. The Sleepy Hollow gate.
There's no gate.
Well, I don't know what happened. So was the gate gone?
Gate's gone.
I think,
Can we defer discussion on that then?
Okay. Sure.
Is that it, Jerry?
One other thing that I'll bring up now is we are looking at getting funding for a traffic consultant, and we're working with that person and putting a grant request together. So that's pretty well it for me.
Next is Conservation and Aesthetics Committee.
We have not met. In fact, I have been gone for 2 weeks and just got back late last night. Conservation's big efforts, long-term efforts, have been trying to find a way to have someone in the conservation area purchase much of the state trust land that gives Gold Canyon its open space environment. It's almost totally owned by the Arizona State Land Department. And if any of you have been tracking things, you know that the 2,800 acres that was fairly recently auctioned off, state land that was auctioned off south of Apache Junction, sold for nearly $89,000 per acre. So it figures to be a very expensive proposition. We do have a number of ideas as to how that might be purchased. And in fact, one would involve not Resolution Copper money per se, but money they must, if they finally get their mine approved, that they will have to pay to the U.S. Forest Service, and we hope to be able to get sufficient pressure that money would be used to purchase some of this land. That would not do it all, but it would do a big chunk if we should be successful. There was a recent, thank you, Dave, by the way, for forwarding the message of the article. There was a recent announcement by the Biden administration that would seem to move things in the direction of approval of the Resolution Copper Line, and perhaps not immediately, but certainly interest in the green economy will require more copper, and that will increase pressure to approve Resolution Copper and other such situations. The only way to guarantee that we retain this open space environment is somehow purchasing that land and put it in some kind of a park or conservation element. Isabel has some ideas that might help in the interim. And I didn't give you since I just got back, but if you could say a few words about that.
Well, yes, we've been just brainstorming, because this is a dire issue, and we need to find a solution for that. And so we've been looking at a multi-pronged approach, which includes the idea of perhaps finding ways to lease the land until we have a decision for purchasing it. As Charlie says, it all boils down to financing, and unfortunately, it's pretty expensive. So we'll have to find ways to raise money. And one of the things we've been thinking about was to contact philanthropic organizations and see if, like the Bill Gates Foundation and so on, and see if they might want to contribute. Yet another question we had is whether Gold Canyon residents would perhaps be willing to pay an extra tax in order to secure this area to be classified as conservation land. So you might hear more about that. We'll probably contact people via social media just to brainstorm and get some input from people. I also had the privilege to attend the ASU class on Tuesday and try to make sure that the students in there who are working on our community plan understand the importance of conservation. So we had good discussions about that, and hopefully we'll see a good result regarding that.
Thank you.
I might add one thing to that, a little longer term. The conservation efforts have been collaborative with SALT, the Superstition Area Land Trust. And we've had continuing efforts to change state law, Arizona state law, that would allow conservation. And there are a few areas of the country where they've done extensive conservation via conservation districts. And that would allow us to spread the cost far beyond Gold Canyon or Gold Canyon and Apache Junction, perhaps over the roughly $1.5 million residents of the entire East Valley, who benefit greatly by having the, dare I use the term, superstition vistas that you can see from great distances. And that would be damaged if we were to get development further up on the slopes.
And next committee report is from strategic planning.
So strategic planning, as a number of us went up last week to ASU and got a good snapshot of where the students are in their planning process. So our next step will be to undertake a strategic plan. And a strategic plan is much different than a community plan or a comprehensive plan or a master plan. The strategic plan will identify specific high-level goals and then specific strategies or implementation strategies to meet those goals. So a little bit later at our board meeting, we are going to go over, and you're all invited to listen, the work sheet on strategic planning that lays out the steps that we will be going through in conjunction with the adoption of the community plan. So stay tuned for that, and it'll be a community process. It has to be. We're going to need folks' input to help drive those strategies, what's important. Once we learn a little bit more about where the community plan is, it'll provide a better opportunity, a little clearer vision of how we start to line up some of those high-level aspirational goals, and then those specific strategies that will help us reach those goals over typically a 3 or 4 year period as a strategic plan. So I'll just stop right there.
Thank you very much, Steve. Let's go back now to briefly mentioned. Dick Richards, do you want to comment on any of that, this gate situation, before we open it up for further discussion?
Well, we've heard all the bad stuff, and the gate's gone, so people are going in and out right now. I just find it impossible. How can that happen? I mean, this is, as far as the maps I have on what the Peralta Canyon is supposed to look like, I don't see any. I see the emergency room, the road. I don't. But there's a little road there that I can't remember the name. Fossil Springs Road goes right along the acre lots, and apparently they can't have a gate on Fossil thing. I don't understand how it got changed, frankly.
Okay, Dave, do you want to comment on it? Do you attend the same meeting that I did where we heard the legal department talk briefly about the gate?
Well, I don't think you mean at our initial community meeting.
No, the community meeting that Supervisor Surtee held, where they quickly referred to the decision that's been made by the county, that their legal opinions is that it is an access road, but they're still examining how it transitioned from private road to being accepted into the county public road system, and then being announced as an emergency gate through Supervisor Todd House, and the promise that was made to the community. So it's still a very fluid situation. I've been in contact with the Supervisor Surtee's office asking for information that will document the steps that were taken related to how that gate became an emergency gate. And we haven't tied down the history on that yet, but.
Well, but to add to that, at the supervisors meeting on Friday, they had a special meeting. One of the agenda items was they went into executive session to consider hiring an outside counsel to deal with quote unquote road issues. So I think they're lawyering up for that. I think the county office made their opinion, and now they're lawyering up to see get ready for any backlash that comes from the community. So I think we have some digging to do to find out, but you're right. If you remember at the initial 500 person meeting at the church, all the county people there said, oh, no, it's going to be just emergency. Don't worry about it. We've got it under control. And now all of a sudden they're backtracking. So we need to find out what happened.
It's actually a bigger picture than that. I mean, when Peralta Canyon gets full with all those people, but okay, now you're gonna have a light at King Branch Road. I mean, they're gonna be
Right.
flow and all that. I mean, it's these people need another way to get out.
And we keep talking about the state trust land at the end of one of those Chevron or something roads. What? How come we can't do something with that? I don't know.
Well, at the time that we had the community meeting, prior to that, I talked with Supervisor Todd House about the Chevron is the road street that you're referencing. It's the road that's closest to US 60. But it ends at state trust land. And so Supervisor House's response to me was that it's state trust land that's very expensive. And that's why the builder was not willing to create a safety access that's closer to US 60. So it's still a very garbled situation. And like Dave said, the executive session did not report what, if any, conclusion they came to.
Glenn has his hand up, so do you want him to?
Okay, Glenn, you're recognized.
Thank you. I was up there yesterday, and the gate's still there. It's open from time to time. I think the builders are using it quite a bit. But the other day, I thought it was wide open. After I heard what the county had said, I thought it was wide open. So I drove over there coming from Fry's after a grocery shopping, and it was closed. And I was kind of surprised because every time I've gone by with my bike, and I bike through there quite a bit, and I do it probably, I go by it at least once a day, at least during the weekdays. And it's always partially open or open, but when I took my car there, and I saw a lot of people coming out when I was on my bike previously, but the gate's still there, and so is the sign. And I think, if you look at the sign and, the legal stuff and look at that, you look at the, laws that they quote on the signs, it's not related at all to the closure anyway. That's, the gate's still there though.
Yes, I walk that street and 3 days ago, I walked by, it was open. I walked back 20 minutes later and it was closed. And so I know that neighbors are trying to maintain it closed, which was the last official decision that we heard from the county. And so it's, like I say, a very garbled situation. And I've talked with neighbors who are there adjacent to the gate. And so it's got everybody very confused. But we don't have a final word yet from the county. Keeping in mind that when a county accepts a road, it has to be part of the public record. And so I'm waiting to hear back from Supervisor Surtees' office. And if I feel that there's not enough information, I'm prepared to submit a public record request to seek a paper trail of that road that we're concerned about. Any other comments from the community? There have been a number of people that apparently checked in. We've had community people identify themselves. Folks who entered after 9 a.m., would you identify yourselves, and you're welcome to unmute yourselves and comment at any point. Dave, do you see any raised hands?
No.
Do you see people that were...
Debbie Barilla, she is unmuted, and you came in after. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, I've been here
Oh, okay.
She did identify.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Chris Brooks. I'm new
Okay.
to the group. I live in Gold Canyon, and I was just very interested. We've got some crazy things going on around here lately, and I just figured you'd be a good group to get connected with.
Thank you,
Great.
Chris. And do you have any comment on the topic that we're talking about
Mike.
right now?
Mike DeRosa has his hand up.
Mike DeRosa, you're recognized.
Okay, thanks. Just a overall comment. We're sort of stuck in two places. We talk a lot about the traffic on 60 and what's going to happen to it as Peralta and all the other places south of us are developed, because it's going to add thousands of cars to that road. At the same time, everybody wants to be able to get off of 60. And the only way to get off of 60, and that's why, you know, this gate issue is big, because people will want to come from Peralta, that back way, if you will, over to Kings Road and et cetera, to stay off of 60. And so I see it as an ongoing problem that we're going to have to find some way to get that alternate road. And it may be through the gate, if you will. Because I don't know that we're going to be able to find money at $90,000 an acre to be able to buy other land. You know, we can't have a bake sale to raise that kind of bucks. And I don't know if folks in Gold Canyon are going to want to pay a tax. So we need to prepare ourselves for that. In other words, we need to manage expectations. We're not going to be able to cut roads off completely. We're not going to be able to make the changes to 60 we want as quickly as possible, but we just have to understand that, I think.
Yeah, Mike, this is Jerry. My feeling is, again, this is starting to look like Santan. Every time there's a little piece of the puzzle, a little bit of twisting here and there, you get, well, we'll give up, or, we'll move on, because the planning has not been done adequately. We've underfunded the access roads. And this is another example of it, where now you want to put a Maverick station in there and all the rest of it. Nobody's taking the big picture and saying, look, this is what we're going to do. And you have to slow things down. You have to stop them. You have to spend money in the right places, not just be reckless. So, it's clear to me that this is another case where, maybe the old regime said this, but now that people are there, there's a real need. And, the underbelly of Pinell County planning is really starting to show. And that's unfortunate, because we've got to straighten that out on every community that's going in. And this one in particular, if they've got to spend money to get another access and put some feeders from Chevelon and other places and come out to 60, just like Mike Goodman is saying, we're putting in a Santan Parkway because of the sins of the past. And that's kind of what we need here, is some other gateway out of there. So, the county can't just go on to the next project and approve it. We've got to fix the ones that we've got right in front of us.
And that is the precise reason why GCCI was formed. We went to the county to point out that this unincorporated community needs a process by which it can help manage the growth that's happening. And that is the end product that we are seeking through the ASU study, to develop a long-range community development plan that will take into account these challenges that we've seen in the past, but anticipating what's heading our direction. So it lends even more reason why we need to continue with this ASU study and work to ensure that we have a process by which to avoid these kinds of issues of inadequate planning.
I think we're going to end up with the same issue in Entrada del Oro, because there's one way in and out of there, and they're building 700 new homes back there. So, it's just down the road.
Yeah.
So we need to get in front of
And
it.
with Entrada del Oro, Charlie Goff, Maxine Brown, and I have already scheduled a meeting with the builder there, because I think part of the issue has been what has been the monitoring process by the county that has allowed these issues to become a crisis for us.
Okay.
Anybody else from the community? You're all welcome to unmute yourselves on any issue that is of concern to you.
Well, Isabel,
ahead,
do you have any more update on, what Barb Cox was working on in Entrada?
Well,
She wasn't able to attend to give us an update.
I don't have precise numbers, but.
I thought it was something like
you
200 plants she moved, I think. Yeah.
Yes, you may know that Barbara Cox is the lady who in Entrada del Oro was moved to save some of the cacti that would otherwise have been destroyed through the new development there. And so she put out several calls on social media, some of which were answered by us. And so we got involved trying to help her move these cacti. By moving, I'm saying digging them out. Okay, so first tagging them, then digging them out and moving them to a different location physically. And so that has worked. And you said about 200?
Yeah.
That sounds about right. There were a few days where quite a few people, including from the Arboretum, were coming to help, and she was able to mobilize a lot of people, which is absolutely wonderful.
And Charlie Salt.
Charlie
Group, yeah.
was helping,
Yeah.
exactly, and lots of individuals.
Yeah.
So this is a beautiful example of how the community can come together and how social media is actually helping with
Yeah.
this. So I think it was within the tragic overall situation, it was the best possible outcome that the community came together to help this lady, who is, by the way, absolutely wonderful, to save some of the flora that otherwise would have been lost.
I know, as part of my volunteering out at the state park, we went and took 30 cactus from the
Oh.
area,
Nice.
including transplanting a 5 arms oro that I haven't seen.
Wow.
That's, I don't know if it's right in front of the park office now at the park or not. But anyway, we planted it, and I know, and maybe that there's gonna be a celebration with Barbara and others out at the state park to kind of celebrate
Oh, good.
what she did. I don't know the date. I think it's later in April. So we probably should
Oh,
flush
yeah.
that date
Oh,
out with
yeah.
her and
Yes.
let.
Oh, yeah, we'll
folks know.
definitely push it
And I
out. Yeah.
know that it's scheduled and it's gonna be a big hoorah with the Arboretum folks and the state park folks. Yeah.
Charlie, go ahead.
Assuming Barbara's schedule proceeded as she was hoping it would. She has since, I think, the 26th of March been in the Netherlands, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
she
she's
went
had
to-
a
yeah.
couple-week trip scheduled.
Yeah.
So if you notice that she's been quiet recently, that's probably why.
But she had a deadline of the 1st of April anyways to
Right.
get it done, so. she
Yeah, the
did
earth
that.
movers are starting, right? This week wasn't it the
Yeah,
4th of March?
yep. Speaking of the park, do you want to talk about, you've got an event coming up, don't you? You want to mention that?
Well, there is a wine tasting event or fundraiser at the park tonight. I believe we're booked.
Okay, good,
Yeah,
good.
I think we're booked, and it's our friends group. It's our annual fundraiser that we give money back to the state park. They've used it for buy golf carts for the staff and trail improvements, landscape improvements, some programming money. So
Good.
it's just kind of
Okay,
it's a fun little thing, but it is tonight, but I believe it's maxed out,
okay,
140 people.
that's good.
What's the name of the group?
Friends of Lost Dutchman State Park.
Okay.
So we're a nonprofit directly tied to the State Park Foundation.
Right.
So we fall under their 501(c)(3).
Remember that years ago, that was formed when the state
Right.
was running out of money and stopped funding state parks. So
That's
this
exactly
group
what
came up
happened.
to save our local state park. So they're doing great work, yeah.
But it shows you that Isabel's idea isn't all that far-fetched, that there are people out there are organizations out there that need to be approached
Oh, yeah.
to help us advance our conservation goals.
Great.
Let's go back to the ASU class.
Well, wait a minute. Strategic planning, you want Steve to talk that?
I thought he had finished.
Well, I'm hopeful that when we all meet later, that I can spend a little quality time going. over
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
I didn't know that we needed to get to that detail right.
okay, that's
my
fine.
understanding.
Right.
too, that-
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
So. Maybe move ahead then?
sure.
Okay, ASU, I want to give the community people an opportunity to ask any questions they may have. Are there any community people who attended the ASU classes that haven't spoken out?
Well, this is Jerry. I attended the zoning about 3 weeks ago, a zoning class. There was approximately 30 students there. And it was very interesting. He went through the lecture on the zoning process from the 50s to today. And the big difference I got, which I hadn't really thought about it, was now communities are much more integrated. You know, instead of having industry at that end of town and development over here and golf courses over here, there's a, which was the way it was done in the 50s, much more structured. It's now a lot more fluid. And I'm not saying that that was just new to me because I hadn't really thought about it. The other thing that excited me was the concept that which some of you listened to this week was the scenario planning, where you could put in different scenarios where, say, if you wanted lower density or no density or more parks or less parks, or more industry or less industry, you have a live model where you can take the basic lands that you've got and push those and put those variables in, and it gives you different scenarios for that land use. So I'm hoping that that is something that we benefit from, because that's pretty sophisticated to do that. But it was very, very, very interesting. The students are totally engaged, and they're very busy, of course, because they've got 4 other classes in most cases. But I was really encouraged by some of the ideas and some of the energy of those classmates.
Any other comments from? Yes, Charlie.
Question. There was supposedly a session on the 29th that some of you were going to go to. I was hoping to hear a report about that.
I can do that.
No, you go ahead.
So that was just last Tuesday, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Last Tuesday, 5 of us went and engaged in the class. And I think, as Jerry had said, they're at the point now where they're using not a GIS tool, but it's called GeoDesign. It's a computer application. So we got to learn a little bit about how that functions. So what they've done, they've broken the planning effort, if you will, into what they're calling description of systems. These are the specific systems that they're looking into, again, balancing our survey results and so forth, what they've learned from the professor over the last 3 months with specific things as zoning, yet the do's and don'ts and so on. But I just briefly wanted to give you these 10 description of systems that they're specifically going to be flushing out in the plan. The first one is low density residential. The second is medium density residential. The third is commercial and mixed use. The fourth is active transportation, which is more bicycle, pedestrian, active. The second is circulation, which is basically transportation, roadways. And then we get to green infrastructure. They're looking at community, neighborhood, and special use parks. And then 7, we go to conservation. 8 is industrial use. 9 is social services, education, health, medical, those types of things. And then 10 is utility or infrastructure. So those are the 10 basic metrics that they will be integrating into their planning document.
That's total mirror of a comprehensive plan, then, really.
For the most part,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
I think it's all the level of, to what degree of detail are they able to get to at this point in the planning process? And that's true with anything. I mean, how far can you go?
Yeah.
So, but I was impressed with the students. I'll tell you, I hadn't been in a college classroom for 30, 40 years, and it's a lot different than it was in 1975. They all have laptops and they're Zooming with the professors, and it was just very cool. 32 young, outstanding young people. It was awesome.
Okay.
Yeah, and what's encouraging is when they were introduced to us by the professor, that some of them are in their early careers. They're already out there in the world of practice. And so, Isabel, do you want to add anything to?
You gave a perfect summary of what we saw. I second your impression of the young people being really, really engaged, and they really want to do good work for us. This particular class session was split up in groups, and some of the community members, including myself and Glenn Vegas, was there. So we were assigned to particular groups, and so we answered lots of questions along the lines of these 10 points that you just read to us. And they really wanted to know what the community input is, so Glenn and I tried our best with our group to make them see what we want. And what we want is very much what you want, because we saw what everybody here wants in the community survey. So we were trying to push this. So they had questions about industry north of US 60, and for example, we said, absolutely not. Okay, there's not going to be any industry. Oh, our dead bodies. Okay, so and they definitely got that. I had prepared a little handout for them that gave them resources regarding conservation stuff, because I really wanted them to have access to those. Personally, I've done a lot of research in that respect, and so I just wanted to have them access to that. And let's see. No, that's pretty much it. The questions they asked were perfect. I think they're off to a good start. My only concern is that they're running a little late. They're just now talking about mission statements, and I would have done that differently. Mission statement should have come first. But other than that, great people, and we're hopeful that they are going to create a really nice, workable product for us.
Okay. Mike
right.
DeRosa and I attended the class before. Mike, you want to talk?
Sure, just a couple of things, because I think the whole thing has been summarized very, very well. But Dave and I went to it was transportation and land use planning. And I would say that the students are very aware of what Gold Canyon residents want. They're very concerned with the environment and any of their planning. So I was pleased with that. Open spaces, green spaces, et cetera. So it really dovetailed with the things that we've been talking about. The very end of it, the professor talked about the 15-minute city, and it's a concept that I think planners are starting to look at, that people they want to stay in their own, let's call it neighborhoods or their smaller areas, and what can planning do to help them get from one side of their city or their living area to the next one. So we made it clear too, and Dave and I, we talked about the people in Gold Canyon. They want walking trails, they want biking, e-bikes, and even golf carts. And how do you develop your transportation system around that? That's one of the reasons I brought up before, the fact that we're sort of caught between, if you do a lot of work on 60, it adds lanes. The more lanes you have, the more traffic, the more building that you've got, then you'll complain because there's more traffic showing up. The problem we've got is there's no opportunity right now for any public transportation in Gold Canyon, because I think they mentioned that or they even said, hey, there's no public transportation, because that's one of the things city planners really look at, is how do you move a lot of people in a dense area, and you don't have to worry about the cars. We don't seem to have that. I think they made the comment that we're a very car-centered, dependent area. And that's why we were talking about golf carts, et cetera. We were compared to Sun City in golf carts. I got a little upset about that one, but I'm not that old. But anyway, I thought it was very good, and really enjoyed myself. And like you, first time I've been back in a classroom, I found myself taking notes, because that's what I always did. I was probably going to take a test soon. So anyway, it was a great experience, and I tell everybody to give it a chance, and I'm looking forward to their product.
Dave, before you speak, may I go back to?
Sure.
Glenn Ligas, you attended the class. Would you like to share your impressions?
Glenn's not on.
Wasn't he on?
No.
Oh, who was the Glenn that was on?
Ben Fulmer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Did Glenn
could
go?
we use last names also?
I did talk to Glenn yesterday and he's excited
Which Glenn?
to Glenn Lingus. And I talked to all these guys. Come have 3 ends. Anyway, and he's hoping to go back. I know we've got 5 people lined up to go this Tuesday. And we need to talk about this probably outside the community meeting to make sure we got representation, not only for the next 3 or 4 weeks as the class winds down. We need to have people there from the community.
Dave, you had indicated you wanted to speak from
No, I
ASU.
was just, I would echo what Mike said, that it was very interesting because they brought up some ideas about, oh, we could do this and we could do that. And Mike and I kind of pushed back and said, well, that's not going to really work. And so they're open to that because they're envisioning other, avenues of planning that, and a lot of this class that we attended was on transportation. And the professor went through a whole beginning of the class talking about how major cities like London and I think he used an example of Denver and how they did their planning around major transportation centers. They figured out where were people coming from and going, and then getting the volume of that kind of traffic, and then put transportation nodes in to facilitate that kind of stuff. And that's okay for London or that, but we tried to bring it back to Gold Canyon, and eventually at the end of the class he did bring the focus of what they were learning back to our community and what our community wants. So
Well, bringing it back to the community, let's not overlook that we have a very significant number of senior citizens who may not feel comfortable, or I may not feel comfortable being on the same narrow pathway with them driving a golf cart.
well, that would have to be considered in the planning of those kind of.
Yeah, but was
Yeah.
any mention made of looking at the needs of that senior citizen demographic?
That wasn't brought up, but they know our demographics.
Well, they know it,
Yeah.
but I'd suggest that in any further discussions, we might remind them of that.
Right.
For the safety of those of us seniors who may still be out there driving, but who knows how much longer we can safely be out there driving.
Well, I'm assuming whoever comes up with the actual plans, like Steve said, how deep do you want to get into it? When you get into that deep of concept of, well, who's going to be using these paths, that then comes into design, or how do you design them so it meets all these different modalities. So
Plus a gap in social services is there's no ADA transit around here, right? So you don't have any way except on a volunteer basis to serve the community, to get doctors or anything like that.
like Glenn has his hand up.
Okay, Glenn.
I'm just
which-
kind
Glenn Fulmer, I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Glenn.
I'm just
Looking.
kind of curious when that report is supposed to be done. And, it's all this stuff is sort of after the fact that we had all this building and it's still going on. And I'm amazed at how fast they can put it up. But how soon is the ASU study supposed to be done?
The end of this month. Right?
At the end of the month, it'll be done. And we've talked about getting a consultant to take what we have from there to marry it with a comprehensive plan. And then work with the county to get a special area plan with our own zoning requirements. And I guess we're at the stage where I think that's going to be somebody who's professional to do that, because we've reached the limit, and investing in more students is probably not the right answer. We thought it might be, but I think it's going to be more consulting service.
Well, let me say, as a advocate for public, unstructured, unprofessional public, that I think that's where the real burden will be, because the county will be in a position to receive this study that's put into a plan that is yet to be outlined. And then how do you actively pursue lobbying for adoption of that plan? So Glenn Fulmer, keep your energy level high, because we're going to need a lot of involvement in making sure that we put together the best action plan to secure adoption by the Board of Supervisors of a plan that will take into account the data we put together through the ASU, the needs that are still emerging from the community. So there's a lot of work to do going forward. Before we close the meeting, I'd like to ask the community members in particular, do you have any suggestions for issues that have not been mentioned today that you have concern about, that we ought to put on our list to review? For example,
Christy has a hand up.
Christy
Brooks.
Yeah,
Yes,
you can call
Chris.
me, you can call me Chris. I
Okay,
was just curious if you had any knowledge in regards to this application for variance in Gold Canyon that they're trying to change the zoning on it.
yes. I have some information on it.
I'm just
you-
kind of curious because the card doesn't say a whole lot and it doesn't even really give you a time of the meeting. I was going to give the community development manager a call. I used to work community development back in the day. So, but I was just curious if your group knew anything about that.
Well, I got the notice because it's happening right across the wall from me. And are you living in that community?
I live in Gold Canyon. Oh goodness, what are we called? Foothills at Gold Canyon Ranch. So
Right.
it's
Yeah,
my
you're
back wall.
Yeah, okay. You're right behind me.
Right.
Yeah, I got the notice and it looks like it's scheduled for
25th, but I don't know what time.
yeah, I think it's 9:00 at the courthouse.
9 o'clock in the morning. Okay.
Yes,
What day, Dave?
the 25th. I believe I put it on the calendar.
Yeah, I've got well, and that's where it because it sounds like this was signed on April the 25th. And it's like, I was like, okay, this is kind of.
No, it's the actual meeting is on the 28th.
28th?
The 28th at the courthouse at 9:00.
Okay.
No, at the courthouse in Florence.
Florence, yeah, because I was gonna take off and try and go to it. Just because I don't understand what they're actually trying to do. I know they're looking for a blanket variance, which was.
Well,
so, I
from
mean,
from what information I was able to glean is, looking at the actual planning and zoning stuff, is apparently that area was developed back in the 80s.
Mhm.
And the zoning requirements back in the 80s are totally different than they are now.
Right.
And apparently the builder wants to complete that project. There's probably about 8 or 10 lots there. And the way they're structured now, or the way they were zoned in 1980, doesn't allow him to put in the structures that make sense for him financially. So he's looking for some variances. I don't know.
Right, and I don't want
Exactly.
2-story houses back there. That's.
Well,
and I
yeah,
thought,
that's,
that's my big thing because we'll be boxed in big time. I mean, if you have a single story is one thing, and I do understand they need to be able to do it, but. And so that was just, I know it's not just me. I've been talking with a few, and we actually put this on our HO. I'm the, I think I'm the vice president. I don't even remember anymore of our HOA, and I had them put it on the agenda for next Wednesday, just to be able to have a chat so people are aware of it, because not everybody got this card.
Right,
We're not-
right.
Yeah, and Christie, which HOA?
She's
I
she's
am-
with Foothills.
Foothills?
Foothills at Gold Canyon Ranch.
Okay,
So
because
my-
I understand, I heard the name Casas of Mesa de Oro.
That's the actual one, the HOA that's asking for the variance. And-
Right.
And they're right in the middle of that, that the Foothills one, and there's several HOAs in there. It's right in the middle.
Right.
it was-
I lived in Mesa de Oro.
No, it's called Casas.
Dead Mesa.
Yeah,
Mesa de Oro.
yeah.
So it's very confusing.
I don't know. Right now, I've ridden through there, and it looks like it's basically like a duplexes or something like that.
Yeah,
So
that's what I get.
Yeah.
They're, you know,
Lots,
zero-
bounds,
zero
duplex, community
line.
pool.
They don't have a community pool.
Oh, so it's a different, it's not the condos then, right?
No.
Avenida Los Noches.
No.
It's got that all flagged for development now too. The lots are all flagged.
Yeah,
So we really need a precise designation, and usually those cases do get a number.
yeah.
So-
Well, that's why I said there is a number, and you're
Mm-hmm.
able to go online and look at the detail, and that's what but it's written all in planning and zoning ease, so it's hard to determine.
Yeah, it's
what
not
the-
layman's terms. And I mean, I know
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit, I'm not stupid, but it's like, okay. And of course, I was on community development and planning and zoning back in Wisconsin, not here. And so I, have a little bit of knowledge, but it's just, it's close to home. And there's a big area that they're asking to have the whole variance changed. And it's kind of interesting to see how those people that live in those community, in that area are going to be.
Right.
That's why I kind of wanted to go to the meeting. I thought a lot of people won't travel to Florence, but I know two of us here and, just want to know what's going on, because I know, like I said, the lots behind us, we know that someday they're going to build houses there. According to
Yeah.
what we've been told with the HOA that's there, they have to be single-story houses. Because I know my old auctioneer used to work, they were trying to sell that property, and they worked for 2 years with the HOA, and they were having issues because they wanted them to build exactly what the condo looks like over there.
Yeah,
the-
Yeah,
And he wouldn't do
That-
that. He wanted to modernize it,
yeah, he wants to make more money off it.
So he
Yeah.
owns the,
Yeah,
so this.
well, it's actually changed hands. It's not the original owner, because this is back in the 80s, so it's changed hands. And now this guy says, okay, it's time to build. But based on they're locked into the zoning as it was in 1980,
80.
and it won't allow him to build probably multi-story and that kind of stuff. So
Is the gentleman that owns it still the guy that lives in Vegas?
I do not know the owner.
Okay, because I hunted him down before. I got on the website and I hunted him down. I actually went and talked with him because we needed trees cut. I mean, they were encroaching on our walls, and there's still a big one back here that is, and our HOA wasn't getting anywhere. So I just started doing my own digging, and I called him on my own, and he did agree the first time to cut it down, but it's actually a fire hazard back there. Cause I mean, there's big trees that, they're never going to keep them even if they build there, because they're just mangled and yucky.
Thank you, Chris. We've got that on our agenda then to look into. Anybody else before I adjourn the community meeting?
Well, I want to make note that our next meeting, we have our guest speaker is going to be a snake guy. He's a Scott Marlott, and he owns the AZ Snake Proofing Company. And I ran into him at a business networking meeting this past Wednesday, and he agreed to come because the snakes are starting to come out. So I thought it'd be good for our community here. He can tell us, what to look out for and how to snake proof your property and that kind of stuff. So that's, if you're interested in snakes or want to protect yourself from snakes, then he'll be our guest speaker next time.
Okay, the community meeting is adjourned. Community is welcome actually to listen in on our board meeting. Our board meetings are always open to the public for transparency's sake. So don't feel that you need to log off, but you're thank you very much for having participated in the past hour. So.
Thanks, everybody. I gotta leave. Take care.
Yeah,
Thank you.
bye. Thanks. You Dave.